Imagine two people. They are both 35 years old. They both earn a comfortable income. They both have access to the same opportunities. They both live in the same economy. But 10 years later, their financial lives look completely different. One person spent those years chasing the appearance of success. Every increase in income became a reason to upgrade. A nicer car, a bigger home, more expensive habits. More things that created the feeling of moving forward. But somehow the feeling of being behind never disappeared. The other person made different choices. They didn't look wealthy. They didn't constantly show their progress. They focused on building something quietly. Small savings, intentional spending, long-term decisions. And years later, while nobody was paying attention, they created something far more valuable than an impressive lifestyle. They created financial freedom. The interesting part is that their difference wasn't necessarily intelligent. It wasn't luck. It wasn't even income. It was the small financial behaviors they repeated every day. Because wealth is rarely destroyed by one huge mistake, and it is rarely created by one perfect decision. It is usually the result of small choices repeated for years. A purchase avoided, a dollar invested, a habit improved, a temptation ignored. And this is where many Japanese money principles become fascinating. Japan is often associated with ideas like discipline, simplicity, craftsmanship, patience, and respect for resources. These cultural ideas do not automatically make someone wealthy, but many of them connect with principles that behavioral finance researchers have studied for years. Delayed gratification, intentional decision-making, avoiding emotional spending, and focusing on long-term outcomes. The question is, what can we learn from these ideas? Because maybe the secret to building wealth isn't always finding a way to earn more. Maybe part of the answer is learning how to handle money differently. Today, we are exploring 10 Japanese-inspired money habits that can help people build quiet wealth, and why some of these ideas challenge the way modern consumer culture teaches us to think about success. Habit 1. Choosing simplicity over constant upgrades. One of the biggest financial pressures in modern life is the idea that progress must always look expensive. You get a better job. You earn more money? The expectation is that your lifestyle should immediately show it. A newer car, a larger house, more luxury, more expensive experiences. But there is a hidden problem. When your lifestyle grows every time your income grows, your financial position may never actually improve. This is called lifestyle inflation, and it happens to people at almost every income level. Someone making $50,000 can feel like they need more money. Someone making $150,000 can feel the exact same pressure, because the problem is not always the amount coming in. Sometimes the problem is how quickly everything going out expands. The idea of simplicity challenges this cycle. It asks, what actually improves my life? Not, what will make other people think I am successful? This is a major difference, because many purchases are not really about the item. They are about identity. A person doesn't just buy an expensive watch. They may be buying confidence. They may be buying status. They may be buying a feeling of achievement. But the feeling fades. The payment remains. People who build quiet wealth learn to separate value from appearance. They understand that something being expensive does not automatically mean it improves their life. Sometimes the smartest financial decision is not upgrading. Sometimes it is keeping what already works. Habit 2. Spending with intention. A surprising amount of spending happens without a real decision. Think about how many purchases happen because of a moment. You had a difficult day. You scroll through your phone. You see something interesting. A discount appears. A limited time offer creates urgency. And suddenly, money leaves your account. The purchase feels small, but the pattern becomes expensive. Behavioral finance shows that humans are not purely logical with money. We make emotional decisions. We respond to convenience. We respond to social influence. We respond to feelings. This is why intentional spending is powerful. Before spending money, create a moment of awareness. Ask, why am I buying this? Was this part of my plan? Will this matter 6 months from now? These questions slow down the emotional part of the brain and allow the rational part to participate. The goal is not to remove enjoyment from life. Money should be used to create experiences, comfort, and opportunities. The goal is to stop spending money on things that provide only temporary excitement. Because every dollar has a job. It can either create a moment today or help build freedom tomorrow. The wealthy understand the difference. One of the most common financial mistakes people make is believing that small amounts of money don't matter. After all, what difference does a few dollars make? What difference does skipping one unnecessary purchase make? What difference does saving a little extra each month make? Individually, very little. But wealth is rarely built through individual moments. It is built through accumulation. The Japanese philosophy of continuous improvement, often associated with the concept of kaizen, focuses on small improvements made consistently over time. The same principle applies to money. Imagine two people. The first person constantly dismisses small financial decisions. A few dollars here, a few dollars there. Nothing seems important enough to pay attention to. The second person understands that every financial habit is a vote for their future. Neither person becomes wealthy overnight, but after years of repeated decisions, the gap becomes enormous. This is where compounding becomes so powerful. Most people think compounding only applies to investing, but compounding also applies to behavior. A small improvement repeated for 10 years often produces a result that appears dramatic from the outside. The reality is that it was never dramatic. It was simply consistent. And consistency is something many people underestimate because its rewards are delayed. The wealthy often respect small amounts of money, not because they are obsessed with every dollar, but because they understand what those dollars can become. $100 invested is not just $100. It is future opportunity, future security, future freedom. And once you begin seeing money this way, small financial decisions start feeling much more important. Another powerful habit is delayed gratification. Modern life is designed to eliminate waiting. Food arrives in minutes. Entertainment appears instantly. Products can be delivered to your door with a single click. Convenience has become one of the defining features of modern consumer culture. But wealth often requires the opposite mindset. The ability to wait. The ability to delay rewards. The ability to choose a larger future benefit over a smaller immediate pleasure. This sounds simple. In practice, it can be incredibly difficult because the human brain naturally prefers immediate rewards. Behavioral economists call this present bias. We place greater value on benefits we can experience today than benefits that may arrive years from now. That is why saving can feel difficult. The reward is distant. The sacrifice is immediate. That is why investing can feel uncomfortable. The uncertainty exists today. The potential reward exists in the future. But people who build wealth learn to think differently. They understand that every financial decision involves a trade-off between the present and the future. A purchase today may provide temporary satisfaction, but money invested today can create opportunities for decades. This does not mean never enjoying your life. It means recognizing that not every desire deserves an immediate response. Sometimes the strongest financial decision is simply waiting, because many impulses disappear when given enough time, and every impulse that disappears is money that remains available for more important goals. The fifth habit is avoiding the need to look wealthy. Perhaps one of the most dangerous financial traps in modern society is the pressure to appear successful. Social media has amplified this pressure dramatically. Every day, people are exposed to images of luxury cars, luxury vacations, luxury homes, luxury lifestyles. The message is subtle but powerful. Success should be visible. Success should be displayed. But genuine wealth often looks very different. In many cases, wealth is invisible. It exists in investment accounts, retirement funds, business ownership, cash reserves, assets that do not attract attention. This creates an interesting contradiction. The people who look wealthy are not always wealthy, and the people who are wealthy do not always look wealthy. Many high-income earners spend enormous amounts of money maintaining an image. Meanwhile, many financially secure individuals live surprisingly ordinary lives. They are not trying to impress strangers. They are trying to increase freedom. And freedom is far more valuable than appearance. Because appearances require constant maintenance. A lifestyle built around impressing others becomes expensive. The target never stops moving. There is always someone with a bigger house, a newer car, a more luxurious vacation, a higher income. Comparison creates an endless race, and it is a race that many people spend their entire lives running. Quiet wealth takes a different approach. Instead of asking, "How successful do I look?" it asks, "How secure am I becoming?" That shift changes everything. The sixth habit is creating awareness around spending. One reason people overspend is surprisingly simple. They lose awareness. Money leaves their accounts so easily that they stop noticing where it goes. Subscriptions renew automatically. Digital payments happen instantly. Purchases require only a few taps on a screen. The convenience is incredible, but convenience can also create distance. Distance between spending and feeling. Years ago, handing over physical cash created a stronger emotional response. You could literally see money leaving your hands. Today, spending often feels abstract. Numbers change on a screen. That's all. This is why awareness matters. The goal is not necessarily to use cash. The goal is to remain connected to your financial reality. Review your spending. Track major expenses. Understand where your money is going. Because people cannot improve what they do not understand. And many financial problems begin with a simple lack of awareness. Not because someone is irresponsible, but because modern systems make spending almost effortless. Awareness restores control. And control is one of the most valuable financial assets a person can have. The seventh habit is maintaining rather than constantly replacing. Modern consumer culture often teaches people to replace things long before replacement becomes necessary. A phone becomes slightly outdated. Replace it. A car develops minor cosmetic wear. Replace it. Furniture starts looking old. Replace it. The assumption is that newer automatically means better. But there is another perspective. The perspective that asks, does this still serve its purpose? Many Japanese traditions place significant value on caring for possessions and extending their useful life. And financially, this mindset can be incredibly powerful because every replacement comes with a cost, sometimes a large cost. People often underestimate how much money disappears through constant upgrading, not because the upgrades are necessary, but because they become normal. People stop questioning them. The wealthy often evaluate purchases differently. Instead of asking, what is new? They ask, what is useful? And those are not always the same thing. A well-maintained asset can provide value for years longer than expected. The result is lower spending and greater financial flexibility. And over decades, those savings become significant. The eighth habit is building systems instead of relying on motivation. One of the biggest myths in personal finance is the belief that successful people simply have more willpower. The reality is usually different. Willpower is unreliable. Everyone gets tired. Everyone becomes emotional. Everyone has moments of weakness. The difference is that financially successful people often build systems that reduce the need for constant discipline. Savings happen automatically. Investments happen automatically. Bills are organized automatically. Good decisions become easier because the environment supports them. Think about it this way. If you had to remember to save money every single month, eventually you would forget. Eventually life would get busy. Eventually something would interrupt the process. But if the money moves automatically, the habit continues regardless of motivation. This is one of the most powerful ideas in wealth building. Success becomes less dependent on how you feel, and more dependent on how your system operates. The best financial systems make the right choice the easiest choice, and that creates consistency, which ultimately creates results. One of the most valuable financial skills a person can develop is the ability to think beyond the present moment. This sounds simple, but it is surprisingly rare. Modern consumer culture constantly encourages short-term thinking. Buy now, upgrade now, enjoy now, get results now. Everything is designed to make the future feel less important than the present. But wealth is built in the future. That is why long-term thinking changes everything. When someone adopts a long-term mindset, they begin asking different questions. Instead of asking, what do I want today? They ask, what will I wish I had done 5 years from now? This subtle shift can completely transform financial behavior. A long-term thinker sees an investment differently. They understand that today's sacrifice may become tomorrow's opportunity. They view savings differently. They understand that every dollar saved creates future flexibility. They view debt differently. They understand that borrowing from the future often limits future freedom. This is one of the reasons wealthy people often appear patient. They are not necessarily smarter. They simply evaluate decisions across a longer timeline. Imagine planting a tree. You do not expect shade tomorrow. You plant it because you understand what it can become. Wealth works much the same way. The actions that matter most today often produce results years later. The challenge is that delayed rewards are difficult for the human brain to appreciate. We naturally focus on immediate outcomes. That is why so many people abandon good financial habits too early. They save for a few months and become discouraged. They invest for a year and wonder why they are not rich. They expect dramatic results from actions that require time. But the most powerful financial force is not intensity. It is consistency. And consistency becomes much easier when you think long-term. Because once you understand where you are going, temporary setbacks become less important. You stop obsessing over short-term fluctuations. You stop comparing yourself to people chasing quick wins. And you begin focusing on the habits that compound over decades. This is where the gap between consumers and wealth builders becomes obvious. Consumers often optimize for today. Wealth builders optimize for the future. And over enough time, that difference becomes enormous. The 10th habit is finding happiness outside of spending. This final habit may be the most important because it sits underneath all the others. Many people spend money for reasons they don't fully understand. They believe they are buying products, but often they are buying emotions, comfort, status, excitement, recognition, confidence, a sense of achievement. The problem is that purchases are rarely able to provide these feelings permanently. The excitement fades. The novelty disappears. The item becomes normal, and soon the brain begins searching for the next purchase. Psychologists sometimes refer to this as hedonic adaptation. Human beings quickly become accustomed to improvements in their circumstances. What once felt exciting eventually feels ordinary. This creates a cycle. Buy, enjoy, adapt, repeat, and it can continue indefinitely. The challenge is that wealth becomes very difficult to build when spending is being used as a source of emotional fulfillment. Because there is no finish line. No purchase permanently satisfies the desire for more. People who build quiet wealth often discover something different. They learn to separate happiness from consumption. They find fulfillment in relationships, in meaningful work, in personal growth, in family, in community, in health, in experiences that do not require constant spending. This doesn't mean they never buy nice things. It doesn't mean they avoid enjoyment. It simply means their happiness is not dependent on consumption, and that changes their relationship with money. When spending is no longer the primary source of satisfaction, financial decisions become clearer. Impulse purchases lose some of their power. Comparison becomes less important. Advertising becomes less persuasive. The desire to impress others begins to fade. And suddenly, saving money no longer feels like deprivation. It feels like a choice. A choice that creates options. A choice that creates security. A choice that creates security. And freedom is one of the most valuable things money can provide. Final perspective shift. The deeper lesson behind these Japanese money habits is not that one country has discovered a magical secret that the rest of the world has missed. The real lesson is much simpler. Wealth is largely behavioral. Most people spend years searching for financial shortcuts, the perfect investment, the perfect side hustle, the perfect strategy, the perfect opportunity. And while those things can matter, they often distract from a more important truth. Financial success is usually built through ordinary decisions, repeated consistently for a very long time. A person who spends intentionally, a person who avoids unnecessary lifestyle inflation, a person who thinks long-term, a person who saves consistently, a person who refuses to measure success through appearances. That person may not look wealthy today. In fact, they may look completely ordinary. But year after year, those habits quietly accumulate, and eventually the results become impossible to ignore. This is why true wealth often grows in silence. There is no applause when someone chooses not to upgrade their lifestyle. There is no recognition when someone invests money instead of spending it. There is no celebration when someone patiently waits for compound growth to work. Most of the actions that build wealth happen behind the scenes. They are invisible, quiet, unremarkable. Until one day they are not. Until one day the person who seemed average has financial security. They have options. They have freedom. They have peace of mind. And while others spent years trying to look successful, they spent those same years becoming successful. Perhaps that is the most important lesson of all. The world encourages people to display wealth, but wealth itself doesn't care about being seen. It grows quietly, one decision at a time, one habit at a time, one year at a time. And for those willing to embrace patience over appearance, intention over impulse, and freedom over status, the rewards can be far greater than any luxury purchase could ever provide. Because in the end, the goal is not to impress people. The goal is to build a life where your money works for you, your future feels secure, and your choices are guided by purpose rather than pressure. And that is the kind of wealth that truly lasts.